In this podcast episode, Joe Rogan welcomes guest Brian Muraresku to discuss various topics related to ancient Greek rituals and the use of psychedelics. The conversation begins with Joe and Brian reminiscing about their trip to Greece and visiting the Acropolis and Greek ruins. They discuss the potential use of psychedelics by ancient Greeks to find God, which is a subject of debate. Brian shares his experience at the conference in Elusis, Greece, where he presented evidence of ritual vessels containing psychedelic compounds found in Spain. However, the site archaeologist, Papangeli, remains unconvinced of the connection between psychedelics and the mysteries in Elusis. The conversation then shifts to the practice of Kundalini yoga and the potential for endogenously created experiences. Joe mentions that Kundalini yoga can lead to states similar to being on psychedelic drugs, including visions and supernatural powers. Brian adds that the goal of yoga is to deflate the ego and avoid getting caught up in the pursuit of superpowers. They also discussed the importance of healthy skepticism and the dangers of ego inflation in spiritual practices and psychedelic experiences. The conversation takes a turn towards the wonders of nature and the impact of light pollution on our perception of the cosmos. Joe reflects on the awe-inspiring experience of seeing the night sky in areas with no light pollution and how it humbles us in the face of the vastness of the universe. They discuss the significance of constellations and storytelling around campfires in ancient times, speculating that Homo erectus may have engaged in similar practices. Brian introduces the concept of homonality, an ancient species that intentionally buried their dead, challenging the notion that only Homo sapiens engaged in burial rituals. He describes the discovery of the homonality remains in the Rising Star cave system in South Africa and the difficulties in accessing the burial chamber. The homonality remains date back to around 300,000 years ago and exhibit archaic features reminiscent of much older hominids. The deliberate burial of the dead by homonality raises questions about their motivations and rituals. The conversation delves into the complex journey homonality would have taken to bury their dead, including navigating narrow passages and using fire for illumination and potentially cooking. Brian highlights the scratch markings found in the cave walls, similar to those made by Homo sapiens, suggesting a shared ritualistic behavior. The discovery of homonality challenges the belief that only Homo sapiens engaged in burial rituals and raises questions about the origins of language and the transmission of rituals across generations. The discussion continues with Brian discussing the discovery of a burial site in Romania that dates back 30,000 years. The site contains evidence of complex burial rituals, including the arrangement of bodies in specific positions and the use of red ochre pigment. Brian suggests that these rituals may have been influenced by interactions between ancient humans and other hominin species, such as Neanderthals. He speculates that these interactions could have involved the exchange of knowledge and ideas, including concepts related to death and the afterlife. The conversation then turns to the topic of AI and its potential to understand and replicate human creativity. Brian argues that while AI may be able to generate ideas and create music or art, it lacks the emotional and spiritual depth that humans bring to the creative process. He suggests that human creativity is fueled by a desire to innovate and make things, and that this drive sets us apart from AI. Joe and Brian also discuss the role of music in human culture and its ability to evoke powerful emotions and inspire movement. They note that while animals may respond to human music, they do not seem to have the same deep connection to it as humans do. Brian suggests that the ability to create and appreciate music is a uniquely human trait that is closely tied to our capacity for creativity and innovation. The conversation then delves into the nature of consciousness and the mysteries surrounding life and death. Brian suggests that humans have a unique ability to explore these existential questions and that our pursuit of knowledge and understanding sets us apart from other species. He argues that ancient cultures, such as the Egyptians and Tibetans, developed rituals and practices to explore the nature of consciousness and the afterlife. The discussion continues with a reflection on the potential of AI to understand and replicate human creativity. Brian suggests that while AI may be able to mimic certain aspects of human creativity, it lacks the depth and soul that humans bring to the creative process. He argues that the human ability to create and appreciate art and music is a fundamental part of what makes us human and sets us apart from AI. The discussion continues with a reflection on the fear of wolves in ancient cultures and how this fear may have stemmed from the fact that wolves were known to prey on humans. Brian explains that wolves have always been a part of human existence until they were eradicated, and now efforts are being made to reintroduce them into the wild. He also discusses the domestication of wolves into dogs and how this process likely occurred through a mutual relationship where wolves realized they could benefit from being near humans. The conversation then shifts to the Russian fox experiment, a study in animal domestication that involved selectively breeding foxes for tameness. Brian explains that over time, the foxes develop traits similar to those found in domesticated species, such as floppy ears and piebald coats. However, he also mentions that there is some dispute regarding the conclusions of the study and the ubiquity of domestication syndrome. The topic of Bigfoot is also discussed, with Joe expressing his skepticism about the existence of the creature. He argues that the famous Patterson-Gimlin footage, which is often cited as evidence of Bigfoot, is likely a hoax. Brian agrees, citing the fact that the footage was taken by individuals with questionable credibility and that there is a lack of concrete evidence to support the existence of Bigfoot. The conversation then turns to Brian's personal experience with COVID-19 and the long-term effects he experienced after recovering from the illness. He discusses how the experience led him to reevaluate his health and make changes, such as quitting alcohol and caffeine. Joe emphasizes the importance of supplementation, particularly vitamin D, in maintaining overall health and boosting the immune system. The discussion continues with a focus on the importance of exercise, specifically strength training, for maintaining optimal health. Joe shares his own workout routine, which involves bodyweight exercises and kettlebell training. He emphasizes the importance of incorporating resistance training into one's fitness regimen, particularly as one ages. Brian continues by discussing his research into the ancient Greek mystery religions and their connection to psychedelic substances. He explains that these mystery religions, such as the Eleusinian mysteries, were highly secretive and involved the consumption of a sacred potion. Brian suggests that this potion may have contained psychoactive substances like ergot, a fungus that grows on grain and has hallucinogenic properties. The discussion then turns to the potential role of psychedelics in the birth of democracy. Brian proposes that the use of psychedelics in these ancient rituals may have led to a shift in consciousness and a desire for more egalitarian forms of governance. He argues that the psychedelic experience can open people's minds to new perspectives and foster a sense of interconnectedness, which may have influenced the development of democratic ideals. Joe and Brian also explore the therapeutic potential of psychedelics. They discuss the use of substances like DMT and psilocybin in modern clinical settings to treat mental health conditions such as depression and PTSD. Brian emphasizes the importance of proper dosing, set, and setting in order to ensure safe and beneficial experiences with psychedelics. The conversation then delves into the history of psychedelic rituals and their impact on consciousness. Brian mentions the work of researchers like Stanislav Grof and John Lilly, who developed methods such as holotropic breathing and sensory deprivation tanks to induce altered states of consciousness without the use of psychedelics. He suggests that these practices may have similar effects on the mind and could be explored as alternatives to psychedelic substances. The discussion also touches on the importance of ceremony and ritual in psychedelic experiences. Brian highlights the significance of the ritualistic setting in ancient religious practices and suggests that the absence of such rituals in modern society may contribute to the lack of reverence and respect for psychedelics. He argues that the integration of ceremony and ritual into psychedelic experiences can enhance their therapeutic and transformative potential. Joe and Brian acknowledge the challenges and ethical considerations surrounding the use of psychedelics. They discuss the need for guidelines and regulations to ensure safe and responsible use, particularly in therapeutic settings. Brian mentions the recent veto of a bill in California that aimed to decriminalize psychedelics, citing the absence of therapeutic guidelines as the reason for the veto. The conversation continues with a discussion of ongoing research into psychedelics and their effects on the brain. Brian mentions the work of researchers at Yale University who are studying ancient containers to identify organic compounds left behind from psychedelic rituals. He emphasizes the importance of interdisciplinary research and collaboration in furthering our understanding of psychedelics and their impact on human consciousness. The discussion continues with a mention of Terence McKenna's stoned ape theory, which suggests that early hominids may have consumed psychedelic mushrooms and experienced profound cognitive and evolutionary effects. Brian adds to this theory by discussing ancient drawings found in Siberia and North Africa that depict human figures with mushrooms above their heads. These drawings are believed to be thousands of years old and provide evidence of the use of psychedelics in ancient cultures. The conversation then shifts to the concept of shamanism and the ritual consumption of psychedelics in ancient cultures. Brian mentions the discovery of the Pinwheel Cave in California, which is hailed as the first unambiguous evidence of psychedelic consumption in connection with rock art. He also discusses the use of datura, a powerful and visionary flower, by indigenous communities such as the Chewash people. These communities had specific rituals and ceremonies surrounding the use of datura, which allowed them to communicate with ancestors and explore the depths of consciousness. Brian emphasizes the importance of understanding the historical context of psychedelic use. He mentions Graham Hancock's book Supernatural, which explores the relationship between cave paintings, shamanism, and the ritual consumption of psychedelics. Brian also highlights the need to study the archaeological and chemical evidence of ancient rituals, as it provides valuable insights into the practices and beliefs of ancient cultures. The conversation then delves into the topic of Paleochristianity and its connection to ancient rituals. Brian shares his research on the hypogea, underground chambers where early Christian rituals took place. He discusses the presence of frescoes depicting banquet scenes, including one that resembles the Last Supper. These scenes suggest a connection between Christian rituals and ancient pagan practices, such as the refrigeria, which were underground chill-outs where wine was consumed to celebrate the dead. Brian presents images from the hypogea, including one that depicts Circe, a mythical figure associated with witchcraft and the use of potent herbs. He explains the ambiguity surrounding these images and their connection to Christian rituals. He also mentions the presence of female initiates and the use of wands, which are reminiscent of Dionysian or Eleusinian initiation ceremonies. The conversation continues with a discussion on the Eucharist and its origins. Brian suggests that the concept of consuming the body and blood of Christ has roots in ancient Greek rituals, particularly those associated with Dionysus. He highlights the importance of understanding the historical and cultural context of the Eucharist and its connection to ancient practices of theophagy, the consumption of the divine. The discussion touches on the recent UFO sightings and the growing interest in UFO research. Brian expresses his fascination with the phenomenon and its potential connection to mythology and folklore. He suggests that understanding the roots of these sightings can provide insights into human consciousness and our relationship with the cosmos. The podcast concludes with a discussion of Brian's book, The Immortality Key, and its success in shedding light on the historical use of psychedelics. Brian reflects on the uncertainty and challenges he faced during the research process but expresses gratitude for the positive reception of his work. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe.